All right, my dude. Welcome back to the podcast. I was saying a minute ago, it's been 3 years almost since you were here, but David Gandelman, welcome back to the
Yeah,
pod. How you been? What's
good.
happening?
I'm great, Jeremy Goldberg.
It's crazy because we recorded in February 2020, which was right before the pandemic occurred. So how's it been? How's life? That was
You
a
know,
thing.
it was a thing, and the pandemic gave me a great chance to get work done. I wrote a book, built an app. I moved to Colorado. Um, yeah, a lot of creative projects. So, on a whole, it's been pretty good for me. And I know it's been devastating to the planet. And but I kind of found a way to ride that wave, and I think that was healthy for me and productive. So I'm glad to be out on the other side of it and be out again. But yeah, it was productive. That's how I would put it.
Just go into like a creative cave
I
mode and
did.
hunker down.
I did. Yeah. How about you?
I found it very confronting because at that time I was living in Costa Rica when we recorded, and I just taught a retreat and I had some fun stuff planned. And at that time, my life was very nomadic, and I had these adventures on the horizon, and my work was largely focused around doing live events and retreats and teaching workshops. And then that all came to a screeching halt. And I found myself with my partner living with my parents unexpectedly for an extended time frame with a tremendous amount of uncertainty on the horizon. So that was a thing. Yeah, we had
Wow.
we had left Costa Rica and stopped by my parents' place to just say hello for a week or two, and we were going to move to Colorado. That was in the plan. So when you said that, my eyebrows perked up a bit. But yeah, I mean, huge lessons. And maybe that's a good segue for your skill set and what you do. So for those listening that are like, David Gandelman, never heard of him. What's your book about? Who are you? What do you do? How do you describe yourself?
I always find that difficult because I do feel like a little bit of a polymath where I like to be in a lot of places and create a lot of projects at once. I think it's my strength and my weakness. But to give you kind of a brief overview, I teach meditation. I have a school for intuitive development. I do have a book out. It's called The Seven Energies of the Soul, which came out during COVID, which I did not use ChatGPT to write for me. But maybe the next one. Just kidding. I have a meditation app called Meditation School. This year, I'm teaching a meditation teacher training certification, which is going to be really exciting, starting soon. And I teach on Insight Timer, which is the world's most used meditation app. It's actually used more than every other meditation and wellness app in the world combined, which is crazy to think about. Um, and I do retreats, like you. I taught a retreat. I took a group to Nepal and Bhutan right before COVID. That was my last retreat out before COVID. And then I'm doing another Nepal and Bhutan this April, and then Spain in the summer. So a little bit of retreat stuff going on, and a little oddly screenwriting for some TV stuff. So all the things.
Yeah. I'm going to be in Spain in the summer also, in July.
Ooh, I'll be
Maybe,
there August.
oh, dang. I'd say maybe our paths will cross. But I was on your website a couple minutes ago checking out your trips, and the Nepal and Bhutan thing sounds amazing. And I thought to myself, oh, this guy is also leading hiking retreats and walking retreats and sort of mixing personal development with outdoor adventure. And I hadn't seen that before. So I feel like we're kindred spirits there.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you done Nepal and Bhutan?
No, but it's been on my hit list for about a decade. And I
Well,
definitely scrolled and read all the information about it.
I highly recommend. Well, they're two different trips this time around. So we're doing a 10, 11-day Nepal and then like a 6-day Bhutan trip because Bhutan is so expensive that not everyone can do both. And then we have a foundation in Nepal called the Himalayan Children's Future Fund. So we work with orphanages there to help kids out. So we'll go hiking on the Annapurna circuit. We'll go see the kids. Obviously we're going to be doing a lot of meditating, personal growth work. So it's kind of a mixed trip in that sense. Um, and I'm so excited to go back. The Himalayas are my favorite place on earth. I haven't been everywhere, but I've been to a fair amount of places, and I lived in India for a while, and yeah, those mountains are extremely special. I mean, as are the mountains in Colorado, but the peaks in Colorado are like 14,000 feet, and you have Everest in Nepal, which is 28,000, and you've got a lot of peaks up there that are pretty incredible. Not that I'm hiking to them, but I look at them from my guest house and go, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to have that experience before I go, you know, before I pass, before I die. Like,
You
I want to see
know,
the big mountains.
it's not that hard. I mean, yeah, the flight's kind of long, but it's extremely affordable if you go on your own or lead a group. Obviously, then you don't have to worry about that. It's a special experience, and it's Nepal is like India light, so the culture is the same. But I think I could be wrong, but I think Nepal only has like 25 or so million people, whereas India is like well over a billion. I think it's actually the most populated country in the world now. Maybe it's closer to two. I'm not even sure. But if India feels a little intense, then Nepal is a good way to go.
There. Okay. So you're a polymath, you do a lot, you're meditation focused, but then you just dropped two words that I'm curious to learn more about. And full transparency, I have no expectations or direction where I'm leading this conversation. I prefer to just be present and fly by the seat of our pants together. But you said intuitive development, or you have a school where you help people develop intuition.
Yeah.
I I'm intrigued by that, and I don't think I've ever talked about it on the podcast before. Would you be willing to dive into that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just to give it a little background, I used to live in India in my 20s, and some lady asked me if I wanted an intuitive reading, and I was like, I don't know what the hell that means. And when you're in your mid early 20s and you're pompous and you think you know everything. So I had my degree in Western philosophy. I was studying all the Eastern traditions, living in the ashrams, head shaved, Vedanta and Zen and Hinduism and Buddhism, and thought I knew everything, mostly in my head. And I think that really is a phase that I don't know. I haven't been a woman, but I know a lot of young men go through that know-it-all phase in their early 20s. So I had some of that. And so she gave me a reading. So she just closed her eyes when we were sitting on pillows in a restaurant on the Ganges River in a place called Rishikesh, which is like the yoga Disneyland of India. Great place to visit as a kind of first stop if you're going to go on a pilgrimage to India. And it's kind of so it's the Ganges River, and it's just lined with hundreds of ashrams and yoga classes and restaurants and Westerners and a lot of Hindu pilgrims, Indians. So it's just a really fantastic place. Monkeys trying to steal your stuff out of your bag, and cows, and swinging bridges over the Ganges, and ceremonies. It is one of my favorite places in the world, and it's at the base of the Himalayas. So you're already in the Himalayas, but not too high up. Uh, all right, so a little background. So she closed her eyes. She started giving me a reading, and she was just looking into my soul. She was saying things that I was feeling so acutely about myself that I hadn't told anyone. And to the point where at one moment I was like, "Oh my god, my chest is so itchy, but I don't want to scratch it because I don't want to move. I don't know if that messes her up," which it doesn't, but I didn't know. And at one point, she was like, "Wow, it's like there's this itchiness on your heart," and I was like, "Yes!" I started scratching. uh, and so it really opened up my energy and kind of broke me out of this mental thing I had going on where I was attached to all my concepts and what I thought was true, because it really blew my paradigm of what was real out of the water in some sense. And and so I was like, where did you learn how to do that? And she said Hawaii, at this school for intuitive development. So I bought a plane ticket to Hawaii. I moved there. I hitchhiked out of the airport. I had no place to live. I slept on someone's floor for a month. I slept in a tent for 3 months, working on a farm. and I went to this school, paid my way. That luckily the tuition was really small, for whatever reason at that time. And I spent 7 years there at that school and 3 years as the director, and teaching a lot of the programs. And then when I left Hawaii, I started my own school. So I have an academy. It's called the Energy Matters Academy. We've had hundreds and hundreds of students go through it. It's a year-long training to learn how to develop your intuitive abilities, let's say spiritual abilities, healing abilities, abilities to do readings, which is very woo-woo. Might have lost some of you. Uh, and it's a special set of tools, I think, that you can incorporate into anything you do. I've worked with CEOs and Hollywood people and stay-at-home moms and engineers and writers and programmers, every walk of life, and they use these tools to deepen into whatever they're doing. So you don't have to go be like a professional reader or anything like that. And I was a professional reader, probably did thousands of readings over about 10, 12 years. I don't really take clients to do that anymore. Very short version of that story is when I started getting more popular online, the pressure just got a lot, and people would come and be like, I've been waiting 2 years for this session and solve all my problems in 1 hour. And I was like, oh, I do not like this feeling at all. Like there's this movie with Matt Damon where he's a psychic. It's directed by Clint Eastwood, The Hereafter, I think it's called. And like you watch him go through that. And yeah, so I stopped doing that. Now I just teach it. And it's really cool. It's fun. And you learn about everything from chakras to energy to energetic boundaries to grounding to seeing energy. And I incorporate that into my other meditation work. I really teach my students how to close their eyes. So close your physical eyes and then open your inner eye. We can call it your mind's eye or your third eye or your sixth chakra. It doesn't matter what you call it. But if I asked you to close your physical eyes and then just see a room in your head and then sit down in the center of that room, maybe redecorate it, now we're using our inner eye, right? So we use our inner eye to see images, and those images are made of energy. And we can see images and energy in ourselves. But I don't know why the universe works this way, and I can't explain it. But we could also, the way I could physically see you with my physical eyes and acknowledge you, I can see you with my inner eye and see your energy, maybe your spirit, see your emotions, what you're going through, what you've gone through, that kind of stuff. Now, that doesn't make me all knowing. People always mix those two up. Oh, if you have some psychic ability, that means you should know the lottery numbers, you should know how everything works out. And that would be like saying, oh, I have two physical eyes, so I could describe to you, what's written on the side of the International Space Station or what's, 1,000 miles away over the horizon. Sometimes all we could see is like headlights in front of a car, like 20 feet in front of us. Um, so by no means does being psychic mean you know everything or see everything. That's not really how it works. We can get into the mechanics of all that if you want to. And I hope that wasn't too long of a description.
Oh, you're great, man. Talk as much as you want. I often will joke with Kendra, my partner, when I finish a podcast. She'll ask, how did that go? And I'll occasionally say things like, "Oh, it was awesome. I hardly talked. Like the guest just rambled, and it was great." Um, so yeah, what did you just say? The something about psychics, the mechanics of being
Yeah.
psychic?
Yeah.
That's
There are mechanics to it for sure.
that sounds almost like a paradox of sorts. So you have mechanics, I think of like engineering and logic and rational building. And then when I think of the word psychic, I think of straight into the woo and the ether and the feelings and the emotions and the feminine and the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Let me see how if there's a good analogy. So, for example, with Newtonian physics, it's very predictable, right? You shoot a rocket into space, you know, trajectory, its speed, the gravitational pull on the rocket, everything, and you could send it to the moon or Mars or beyond and land it within a few inches of your target, right? And then we get into something like quantum mechanics, where there's superpositioning and there is probability, but not certainty. We're still using logic and rationality, but it's like we can only see so far. And we don't know if that's just a function of the system of how it is. Like you literally can't see past superpositioning, or if there are pieces we're still missing that we don't understand. So that using that analogy, I would say there is a rationality and a logic and a structure and mechanics to doing this kind of work, but there's also like a black box of I have no idea past a certain point of how it works or why it works, but I know it works because I've done it thousands of times and you can see the effects. So just like we don't necessarily know how quantum mechanics fully works, but we can see obviously the effects of it, and we know the world is built on it. And we use it for everything from lasers to satellites and beyond, but we don't really not understand everything about it. So, not that quantum mechanics explains psychic phenomenon. I know there are teachers out there that they equate the two. I do not do that at all. I just try to find good analogies. So there is a sense of mystery in there that maybe is unsolvable. I don't know. I have no idea. I
Yeah.
consider myself a lot more like a piano teacher. Like I take piano lessons, so maybe that's why I use that analogy. But I will teach you like the notes, how to play a C and a G, and all of that kind of stuff, how to play some songs. I can't necessarily describe to you the physics of sound and why sound exists and works. But if you want to learn to play piano, we could play together. So I'm very conscious. I'm not a Joe Dispenza. I'm very conscious of. I'm not going to explain to you the nature of reality and pretend I understand it. That doesn't mean we can't play in it, and I can't teach you how to navigate it.
Mm. I love that, man. That was a good analogy. What came up for me was the idea of attraction. So in a relationship dynamic. So you could explain theoretically that you need to be physically attracted to a person and you have to be in their presence and you have to talk to them and have shared values and aligned intentions. But then there's also this spark, right? That just sometimes is there and occasionally
Yeah.
is not. And that to me is analogous to that black box that you referenced of don't exactly know how it works, but I've felt it. I know that it works. It's out there. Lots of people recognize it, and it's somewhat of a mystery always.
Yeah, maybe there are things that are unknowable. I don't know. I truly don't know, but maybe the nature of certain parts of reality are unknowable, or at least beyond the capacity of the human mind to understand.
Mm.
Or we'll figure them out. It could be any of those. I have no idea. But my sense is there, just from my like existential experience meditating and all the things, the universe and beyond our universe is so much more quirky and strange and just unfathomable than we could ever imagine. And obviously, to stay sane, we kind of delete a lot of information and live in our realities as it does every creature so that we can function. But if you were to open up to all of the mysteries of the universe and how it really worked, your brain would just probably explode. Because I think the closer we get to truth, the more of a paradox it becomes. Um, and that's usually why when someone gets really spiritual or they have some kind of spiritual awakening, they start to try to describe it. It begins to sound very nebulous, very vague, very woo woo. The best we could do is use analogies, right? Like if you look at the teachings of Jesus, it's just all analogies. It's always like the kingdom of heaven is like everything is like something else because it can't quite be described. In Zen, they use koans. They ask you to meditate on something that is just illogical, incomprehensible, like what the faces of your parents look like before they were born, or one hand clap, the sound of one hand clapping to get past your mind. So I think when we get closer to truth, we kind of have to let go of our known understanding and go, okay, this might be just some infinite paradox of beyondness that I can maybe touch and experience, but I might not ever be able to explain it.
And then when you work with people, how do you help them to navigate the acceptance or existence of what you just described there? Because oftentimes I'll be chatting with somebody and I can feel and tell and hear them saying things like, I should leave my husband, or I should book a flight to Hawaii and go to this intuition boot camp that you did, but then the mind kicks on, and it's almost like they don't like the black box that the universe has gifted them and repeatedly is kind of bonking them on the head with. How do you help people navigate that process?
Well, first, I think there's a difference between kind of impulsive decision making that are just based on our emotions and true intuition that's connected to a deep part of our soul. And navigating and parsing the difference between the two is usually many years of inner work and meditation and experience. So just because somebody says, "Oh, this is my truth to go quit my job and go do this," that might just be resistance or avoidance, or they're listening to some energy healer that told them what to do. It could be any number of things, programming from society, or the resistance to programming from society. So really, there's a lot more work involved in finding those answers, a lot of inner work of, kind of uncoupling from the programming of our families and society and from all the energies that might really influence us. And then the other part is, again, the mechanics of learning how to see. So when we close our eyes, to actually see our answers and be able to differentiate them from things that are not true. And again, that's something that you can develop, like almost like sharpening a knife. So there's this ability to see energy, and then there's a second ability to know the difference between something true and false, something that's right for us or something that's not. Just in this way that I can see you, I know you're Jeremy. Fine, I can't know with 100% certainty, but to navigate life, I'm pretty certain you're sitting in front of me, across from me on Zoom, right? So in that way, we can become discerning. Our inner eye is very much in atrophy most of the time. It's like an unused muscle since childhood, and so we try to see images and they're just vague blobs of color. It's usually how most people start. So it takes a lot of inner work and practice to sharpen that eye to see as clearly as your physical eyes see. Now, the interdimensional world, let's call it, objects don't have solidified forms, so they could change. So, another analogy would be like in your dream state, you might see me in your dream like David, but I'm a dog or I'm a female or I have a different uh, form, but there's some knowingness in you in the dream. We've all had this where it's me. Have you had that experience in dreams?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so just like that, that ability of knowingness beyond form is something we can develop. And so when I see images in my mind's eye, I can know the energy behind them and what they mean. And that's how I start to find my answers. And if you're a healer, you can help other people find their answers that way too. So when somebody says, it's my truth to go move to Hawaii or to quit my job, I'm always suspect at first. Are they really in touch with that intuitive ability or abilities to feel, see, and know? Or are they just going on some impulsive emotion? And those are very hard to discern. It takes a lot of practice and work to do that. I've seen a lot of people really mess up their lives thinking it was their truth and not being able to tell the difference.
Mm. Yeah, same. I look back at some of the choices I've made and kind of shake my head now. Like, yeah, that wasn't what you thought it was, bro.
It's my inner truth and feeling that I should sleep with everyone because it feels so good. All right, that's different. That's a feeling, and that's different than really deepening into something that's true for you.
Yeah, I find too that it's often the inner truth in that circumstance is easier, more fun, enjoyable, no responsibility, no
Yeah,
consequences. It's like, yeah, it's fine. Versus the inner truth saying, act in integrity, keep your word, do the hard thing. Find that might be
exactly.
an important distinction as well. But if you were looking back, say I had a time machine in my pocket and you could go chat with David that was sitting on the shore of the Ganges that was about to move to Hawaii and whatnot, do you think that that was an act of impulsiveness or of intuition or some combo of both?
That I would say. All right, so when we're young in our process, there's sometimes we get lucky and we get hit by some grace. Maybe it's karma, maybe it's destiny, guardian angels, higher self, life guiding us, whatever you want to call it. And we get guided the way children get guided before they have enough awareness to make their own decisions, right? Like you're even being in the womb, being taken care of. So I think life does help us along the way sometimes until we're conscious enough and grown up enough to take the reins. And so looking back, I would say probably some of that for sure. Some karmic, thing happening of destiny for me. Um, it makes life always makes more sense when you look in the rearview mirror. It doesn't really make sense going forward. So looking
Yeah,
back, it makes so much sense in the context of my life.
completely right. And even you said you arrived there, you had to hitchhike from the airport, you slept on the floor,
Had no
and then
money.
no money, ended up staying there for I think 7 years and running the place. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
I imagine on day one you would have never predicted that if somebody took you aside.
Absolutely
Like,
not.
"Hey, David, don't worry, man. In 7 years you'll be running. All of this could be yours, like Mufasa style."
That is a great analogy. Oh my God, one of my favorite movies from childhood. I love that.
Like all of this, man. Like that would have, I imagine, felt like an impossible dream, right?
Absolutely, absolutely impossible. And just to add a cherry on top of that story, I came to Boulder one other time before I moved here some years ago, and I was just leaving Hawaii, and there was like some like reading fair. They were doing readings at some psychic center in Boulder. So I just like walked up the stairs. I had no idea. And they're like, "Hey, you want a session?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I didn't tell them what I did or where I was coming from or anything, that I ran a school just like this one. And they sat me down in front of two beginner students. One was like 3 months in, one was like 6 months in, and they give me a reading, and the one goes, "Wow, I see you as like a teacher and reaching like many many thousands of people, like really really reaching a wide audience as a spiritual teacher." And I was just sitting there like, "Wow, that's really validating." It was such a sweet kind of validation of my experience, what I was beginning to go through, and the path that I was already on. It was pretty cool. But if you took me, yeah, at that going back to the first day of those 7 years, never would I have believed that that would have happened that way. I do want to give myself a little bit of credit in the sense that I worked extremely hard all the time. Like I spent thousands of hours in a shitty green plastic chair in this little school in Kealakekua, Hawaii, just doing endless amounts of readings to the point where they would kick me out of the school, tell me to go get friends and a life. And so I was relentless. I was not born with any natural ability.
Yeah.
I was not. I did not have psychic experiences growing up as a kid that I was aware of. None of that. I would say I was pretty average, and then all I did was work pretty hard. I don't know if you ever saw that movie Rudy, where the guy wants to be a football player and he's just too small, but he tries really hard. So one time they let him on the field and everyone cries. I'm much more like that.
Beauty
Yeah.
of meditation or
Yeah.
of spirituality.
I would not attribute myself with any exceptional abilities of any kind, intellectual, spiritual, or otherwise. I maybe just was dumb enough to try really hard for a very long time and take an excessive amount of risk, like financial risk, and otherwise like didn't had no idea where my life was leading. I could have went into finance or politics or whatever else, and I just took this, looking back, pretty huge risk. And I've got very lucky in the sense that YouTube and podcasting, everything came online, meditation apps as I was hitting my stride as a teacher. So, like, where I was in my development matched the technology coming online. And I very luckily, with a lot of hard work, started to reach an audience. And so, again, I don't know if that's karma, destiny, luck, or a mix, but I'm looking back again, extremely fortunate that all worked out. And now I love helping other meditation teachers kind of on their paths, navigating that difficult, experience of trying to build something.
And then when you were spending thousands of hours in that green chair, was there any kind of conscious end goal in mind, or was it simply, this is fascinating, I need to learn everything?
Absolutely no end goal. I had no clue I would ever teach. nothing. I didn't think I would ever do it professionally. I literally was just doing it because it felt so good and I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. I feel similarly about some of the things I've done in my past of devouring content, trying shit, putting stuff online. It just felt like I couldn't not do it. Like I just had to do it. And one way that I love about describing this process is Seth Godin. Are you familiar with his work?
Oh yeah, he's amazing. Yeah,
He's a genius, this guy.
yeah.
And he talks about this old adage of if you knew that it was going to work out, what would you do? And then his take, which I love, is paradoxical. And he says, no, I hate that idea. If you knew that it was going to fail
Yeah.
and you were going to do it anyway, what would you do? And
Yeah.
it sounds like for you, it was, yeah, I would sit my ass in that chair and devour spiritual content until the point that these woo woo folks are kicking me out and telling me to get a life. I'm like,
Ex-
didn't
exactly.
matter.
And kudos to Seth Godin. That guy is like a marketing and also life sage, just a fantastic human being. I don't know him. We have some mutual friends and I've heard he's a great guy. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I think he puts it correctly. If you're going to fail, would you do it anyway? And how would you do it? I think that's a pretty good way to look at life.
Yeah. Okay, so let's transition to meditation, if you'd like, or is there more to say about the what was it, the engineering of intuition or
The
the
mechanics, yeah.
psychic? I'm sure you could talk for hours on that, but is there any point that we haven't hit that you're like, Jeremy, your audience needs to know this thing? Like this is
Well,
really vital.
I mean, it really ties into the meditation that I teach. So I really help people learn how to close their eyes and start to find their own answers. And to do that, you have to know how to navigate the inner world. It's very different to the outer world. So the outer world is made up of solid forms, relatively solid forms. If you want to change a solid form, you often need to apply like really high levels of energy or heat to it, right? You want to change ice to water to mist or whatever, right? You have to apply energy and heat, for example. So in the inner world, you can change forms too. It's different. You have thought forms, you have emotional forms, you have like energy forms. You might have like a knot of energy. You might have pain in your shoulder in a knot, right? You might have like a weight on your heart that feels like pretty heavy, or on your back, or sometimes we say that person's a pain in my ass. You got energy down there by your, let's call it your first chakra. Or someone's a pain in my neck. Maybe there's some communication that's stuck with somebody, right? So we have these energetic forms that we're working with, and usually when we're looking for our answers, what we come up against is past pain, limitation, and energy knots that we don't quite understand how to unravel. And they turn into, attachments, they turn into mental blocks, fear, anxiety, resistance, confusion, doubt. I can go on and on and on. And so that's what all human beings hit in life. We hit these energies and we don't quite know how to navigate them. So I think part of my job as a teacher is to help students close their eyes and learn how to navigate all of these energies and help them recognize that their answers flower by getting through the energies. So their answers are born out of the energies that they work through. And the paradoxical thing uh, about psychic work is, it's a lot of people go to psychics because they want to know their future, but they don't want to do the work to create their future. They're just like, no, just give me, just, I don't know if that's paradoxical, but it's just like, give me my answers. And they're on step 2 and they want you to give them step 10. And my job really is to teach them how to go from step 1 to 10 organically. So, for example, if you're working on creating a relationship, you want to find out, what step am I really on? Well, I'm sitting in grief and attachment and pain from a past relationship. So, really, my sense is I'm on step 2 or 3, and I've got to do all this healing work and then know who I am and then know what I want and then be in that positive energy. And then I could attract somebody. So, there might be 5, 6, 7, 8 steps in there, rather than going to a psychic who's going to tell you you're going to meet Billy Joe in 4 years and he's going to have a yellow jacket on or something. No, a good energy reader or healer will say, hey, you've got this pain and this attachment to the past. Let's work on that. I can see that. Let me validate that you're stuck there. And we could do that ourselves in meditation. We don't need a healer. We can close our eyes and go, all right, what's keeping me from getting this answer, taking this step? Let that arise in meditation and start to work on that. So I would say my kind of competence, maybe what I help my students with a lot is that, we close our eyes, we hit these energies. Maybe someone suffers from extreme anxiety or fear, depression. How do we get through that and then find out who we really are and come out the other side and live a life that's full and purposeful? I would say that's where I like to hang out mostly.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard it described succinctly as, everybody wants to have the Grammy Award or the platinum album, but nobody wants to sit in their bedroom for hours and learn to play the guitar, right? It's like,
Absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up because I had somebody come to me once for a reading session when I was living in Los Angeles, which is such an LA story. And it was really hard to give this person a reading. It was like there was so much stuckness. And at one point, I just opened my eyes and I said, why are you here? What is it that you want? Just tell me. What? Don't waste my time. Why are you making me sweat this out with my third eye? And he said, I want to be famous. I was like, oh, fuck. So, like, okay, why do you want to be famous? Oh, because I want to help people. I was like, you want to be famous because you want to help people? Really? Why do you really want to be famous? And then this person said, oh, I really want to be famous because I want to be loved. And I said, all right, it has nothing to do with other people. It has to do with you not having enough love. And I said, listen, if I take you to the top of Mount Everest right now and drop you off, you will die of altitude sickness very quickly. And you see this every day with celebrities. They crash and burn, addiction, 5 marriages, narcissism, everything under the sun, right? You see like Kanye West, for example, just watching him crash and burn in front of the whole world. And so I told him, if you walk up Everest, even if it's a massive mountain, if you can do that, when you get to the top, you'll be able to handle the altitude and maybe the fame or the pressure, or whatever comes with it, making sure you still have a sense of self-worth that's not based on everybody else's judgment. So you got to do the work yourself, which is like, of course, that's the answer. It's so easy. Don't need to do a reading for that. And he looked at me and he was like, well, I went to another healer who just kind of did it for me. So no, I just want to be famous. Can you kind of just do it for me? And I was like, yeah, if you add 10 zeros to what I'm charging you, get the fuck out of here. And I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do it for any amount of money, nor can I. I'm not a magician. Right? Why would I be sitting here reading you if I could just snap my fingers and make it rain like that? So that was one of those readings where I was just like, I might be almost done doing this side of things. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, but you mentioned previously of helping people. Like I describe it as get still and feel God, or get still and talk to God in some regard. And it sounds like that's what you were prescribing also, of find some solitude, close your eyes, go within. Is that an oversimplification?
Always, that's always the prescription. But sometimes I would say that's the foundation, is to go into stillness. But then if, for example, you sit in stillness for a while and then let's say confusion arises or guilt or some deep level of pain, then the question is, all right, how do I deal with this? So the kind of Buddhist prescription would always to be just sit with it and be still. Like in Vipassana, just watch it move around and be still. And I think that solution is only partial. I've had a lot of friends who are expert meditators, sat 30 Vipassana retreats, could sit 3 hours at a time in lotus and stillness, and they're still kind of douchey or selfish or egotistical, or they're really peaceful until they get triggered in a relationship and then they become a total, menace. So I think it is a bit more complicated, modern day humans, of dealing with all of those energies. So I take maybe more of like a dynamic practical approach. I think you want to have, for me, like a fundamental, uh, almost like Eckhart Tolle approach of being present, learning to separate your awareness from your thoughts, being fully in your body. That needs to be like the foundation. That's the foundation of mindfulness, of vipassana, of every spiritual tradition of all time, of sitting in stillness and being connected. And then there are more complicated parts of dealing with each of these energies, and learning how to navigate them and integrate them, and not just kind of wait till they go away, wait till the cloud passes while you're in stillness. There might be things to learn from each of those thoughts and feelings that you actually want to integrate into your being, and then manifest out into the world what comes out of that. So that's maybe where I also spend more time with my students.
I love that. I don't know if I told you, I did my first Vipassana retreat a couple months ago.
Oh,
And
congrats.
it's really hard, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so
Those
hard.
things are no joke.
It hurts. It physically hurts.
My knees were on fire. Yeah, and I felt like I had been stabbed in the back at one point, and I just hear the dude equanimity,
Yeah.
equanimity. Um, but the way the main takeaway I felt was, and I did a whole podcast about this, if anybody's listening and wants to hear me rant about my experience, but I felt like I had excavated this part of my nervous system that was previously not there, and that I had this new layer of regulation or calmness or presence, however you want to describe it, and that I didn't always live there, but now my body, soul, etc., knows what that sensation is like experientially, and that I can go back to that place if and when required. And I found, since I've left that a couple months ago, that process of returning is actually an entirely different skill set than simply sitting quietly with your legs crossed for an hour or two. And I feel like that's
Yeah,
kind of what you're describing there.
absolutely. Yeah. And I highly recommend for most people to, unless, maybe you've got like some real acute depression or sitting still is just too much. For most people, I do highly recommend going to sit and do a Vipassana or two, learn the fundamentals of meditation and how to sit for long periods of time. I think it is incredibly life changing and transformative. So I did 3 in 1 year once, and I was like, "Well, this is some powerful stuff." But then integrating into the world was actually became harder. I was like, "Well, I don't want to be part of the world so much." So I had to learn how to deal with that piece too.
Because it's so different than normal reality in our civilization. It is such an outlier in the
Yeah,
extreme. Yeah, go ahead.
you can sit in bliss all day long if you're on a retreat and someone's feeding you. You have to deal with
Oh,
human relationships. There's no talking allowed. It's fucking easy.
yeah. It was easy and hard, right? I remember
Yeah.
on the second day, maybe it was the first day or the second day, you go and they have question time with the teacher or whoever. And I remember him very paternally and compassionately asking me, like, how are you doing? And I had bright eyes, and I was like, I'm doing good. I really like it. I think I could stay longer than 10 days. And his like eyebrow twitched very quickly, but then he caught himself and dropped back into equanimity and presence. And in that moment, I had this like full body, oh shit, like nobody says that, and that's completely not possible. And I'm gonna have a hell of a time over the next week. It was like the reality check for me, just that one little eyebrow twinge. And it was, man. By day 3, I wanted to burn the building down, and everything came up. But such a
Yep.
that unique experience and hugely transformative for sure.
You're like, this guy's voice is torture. I hate Buddhists. I never want to be here again. I'm not getting anything out of this. This is so antiquated. And then on day 6 or 7, you're like, bliss, God, oneness, I'm enlightened. I'm completely done. This is it. I'm a new person. All is well for the end of time. And then
Yeah,
day 3 out of Vipassana, you're like, oh, my fucking problems are back.
yeah, yeah. I left
But yeah.
Vipassana, had an Airbnb the next day, flew internationally. The day after that, taught a workshop to like 50 sales executives with my buddy. It was I did not plan it Right. I think I would have used some integration time to be.
Yeah, that's tough. You're up there, you're like, nothing you guys do matter.
I think I straight up said during my intro something like, "Look, I'm really chill right now. So if you have anything that you need to talk about, like now's the time because I'm pretty fucking mellow and will be for the rest of the day." So
I love it. That's hilarious.
yeah. And one of the first questions I got was, did you do a lot of drugs and have sex at that retreat? And I just kind of shook my head like, well, that's very interesting that that's where you went with that. But no, didn't do any of that.
It's the opposite. It's the exact opposite. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, all right. What we got like another 15 minutes or so, or 10 minutes. Should we dive into your meditation school? What do you feel like talking about?
I would say the most excited thing that's going on for me at the moment is the meditation teacher training that I'm going to start. I don't know if people are listening to this before or after the date though, but it starts on February 8th.
Oh,
And
it'll be before then. Yeah, let's get this out there and spread the word.
yeah, so I went on a very kind of individualized teacher train journey to become a teacher. I did a 3.5 year teacher training for intuitive teachers, which was a very kind of unique niche training that was exceptionally long, just for the teacher training. But what I found was, because I've worked with a lot of teachers on Insight Timer, there's over 14,000 of them now, and I've coached a fair amount of teachers. My friend Lou, who's a teacher on there, he describes me as your favorite meditation teacher's coach, which I was like, all right, that's how you see me. I'll take it. And a lot of teachers, they don't really know how to navigate the modern world of teaching, and a lot of teacher trainings only focus on mindfulness and or kind of Buddhist principles or practices, or maybe there's like a TM meditation teacher training. They all almost tend to lean in that kind of direction. Or there's like a very guru based teacher training. It's like, all right, this is the guru, you train in his lineage or her lineage, and now that's what you teach. And none of those land well with me, because that's not how I teach, that's not who I am, or what I do. And I just could not find a teacher training out there that was broader, um, for most people. So probably one of the best teacher trainings out there is Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock's mindfulness teacher training. It's about 2 years long, but it's very much MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and Buddhist principles, which is great, but it's not everything. And they don't teach teachers how to do the business side, how to create their content, podcasting, books, audio, whatever it is that they want to do, courses. And so I just saw this space, and then I just kept training and teaching and coaching people for free all the time, because I just wanted to see them take great steps in that way. And so I decided to start my own meditation teacher training. And the way I broke it down was into 3 levels. So level 1 is mastering meditation. Level 2 is learning how to teach, the art of teaching. And level 3 is the business side, let's say, of teaching, what channels to choose, from Insight Timer to podcasting to YouTube, book writing, blog writing, and beyond. Really finding what works for you, and then how to master those channels and find students, teach retreats, one-on-one clients, courses, coaching, all of it. And so that's how I structured this training. And then I brought in maybe 12 or 14 other teachers who all have their kind of expertises: hypnotherapy, mindfulness, trauma-based work, um, as many different angles as that I could find. And they're all going to do pieces as well. And I'll be the main teacher. And there's mentorship groups, there's one-on-ones for the students, which most teacher trainings don't have any one-on-one time with the teachers. And it's
Really?
9 months long.
Like,
Yeah. You have to pay extra, or like Jack and Tara's, it would be like an extra fee, kind of separate from their $9,000
I would
tuition.
get, they're so big and there's probably hundreds or thousands of students going through, but
Yeah.
it seems vital that you would have engagement one-on-one with a teacher of some kind when you're learning to teach.
Yeah, exactly. So we definitely added that component as well. And I brought in some other, business folks. One of our guys, Matt, he spent years at Sounds True Publishing, helping, you know, every teacher you can think of with their work. Our guy Kyle, he's run ads for everyone, from Eckhart Tolle to Wim Hof to Brene Brown to um, pretty much honestly anyone you could think of in that space, Adyashanti. And so he's going to be helping us with that side of things. I brought in one of my old business coaches, who I think is fantastic, Jamie Moran. I tried to bring in as many people to fill in all the gaps that I can't fill. And I want to make it a very fun experience where it's just not like this slog of I'm going to learn the 19 Buddhist principles and memorize everything. So the teachers are going to have to teach to each other. They're going to have to record content to submit some writing as well, and they're going to have to show up to get their certification. So I'm excited about this. We have a whole nice group signed up already, and it's just a kind of new level, new challenge, and it's gonna be fun.
And then just to clarify, have you led this before? Is this the first time or the big launch, or this is an ongoing?
This is the first teacher training that I've done here. I've helped a bit in another school where I did teacher trainings, but this is my first where I'm running it myself.
It's exciting, man.
Yeah.
I
I'm
got to
excited.
plug our mutual pal Hillary Jackendoff, who was on the podcast and is hilarious as she is powerful, I would say. I saw her name on your list of experts and smiled at that.
Yeah, she's going to be teaching in the teacher training. And Hillary has run a lot of teacher trainings. She actually brought me in a few times to teach in hers. So I'm excited to have her. One of her expertises is yoga nidra. Yeah, she's great. Lovely human being.
Yeah, I've sent both of your because I'm on Insight Timer too, and have been for a long time. And I was just leading a retreat in the Dominican Republic, and had a little mindfulness session at the start. And I was like, Insight Timer's the one. I was like, David G's my guy. Like when I first got started, for whatever reason, his voice latched onto my soul and like was the one that resonated the most. And
yeah, and you don't mean me, you mean David G, big white hair,
yeah,
older
Santa Claus.
gentleman. Santa
Yeah.
Claus. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know you at that time. I don't even know if you were on Insight Timer back then, but this would have been like 2014, 2015 maybe.
Maybe. I was one of the first couple hundred teachers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I feel fortunate that I found it when I did. So I've been putting stuff on there for a long time. Yeah.
And so then for your meditation school, like who's the ideal kind of student? Is this for people that have no idea about meditation but want to learn it all? Or is this for somebody that has dabbled and it's changed their life and they're thinking of teaching? Or like who's the ideal kind of person you're looking for?
I think anybody can get what they need out of it. So I would say it's pretty broad in that sense. You don't have to want to be a meditation teacher to take it. Maybe you're a therapist or a healer, caregiver. Maybe you work with people in the boardroom. It could be a podcast. It could be any number of things, and you just want to incorporate that kind of awareness and structure into the work that you do. So you don't have to be wanting to be a teacher. You might already be a meditation teacher, and you just want a certification, or you want the business skills, or to practice, or go kind of next level with it all, or really anything in between. So I definitely have people who are already meditation teachers, people who are healers, people just kind of starting much earlier on the path. And maybe this is a way for them to explore if this is going to be right for them. I feel like for a professional training that you can use to maybe make money for the rest of your life, it's really reasonable and affordable. We give out scholarships, when people need them. So if it's something that calls to you and you're not sure if you're ready or not, then it's something to explore.
Yeah, amazing. And I'll put a link in the show notes for the website, and they could check that out. I was looking at the website earlier. It's thorough and succinct and great, man. So I was impressed at the point. And so well done to you, man. I know it's sort of a long time coming. You've been doing this for decades now, and to have your own school launched and to have your friends helping you to do that must feel really good.
Yeah, I'm super lucky. I have a great team of people. We have a team in Ukraine actually that built the meditation school app right through the war. We've got team members in the Philippines and in the United States, all over the place. And it takes a village. I'm just kind of the tip of the spear. I do the talking, but really, most of the work is done by people who are very professional and good at what they do, from marketing to copywriting to programming to customer service, graphic design, and beyond. I'm going to fire everybody and just use ChatGPT to run my business, but I don't want to let anyone know that yet.
Hopefully
Just
they're not
kidding.
listening. Yeah.
Well, whoever's editing this is.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, sharing it. So it definitely takes a village. It takes investment. I had to learn a lot of skill sets that I didn't know. You know, most meditation teachers and healers, they just want to do their craft and they hit the technology wall and they get really frustrated and they quit, they stop, they get afraid. And really my job, I feel like, is to be a midwife to help people get through those challenges and show them you can do this. You know, if you're building a house, you don't have to be the plumber and the electrician and the architect and the engineer. You might just have a vision, you invest money and time, and then you let the pros do the rest of the work. So and you do what you're good at, let other people do what they're good at. That's what a community is. That's how it's built, from small ones to large ones, right? And why would your meditation ecosystem be any different? Someone's going to edit your audio, your video, your emails, right? All of the things. Do your marketing. So if you want to be a one-stop shop forever and just bleed out by being tired and overworked and not enough energy to create content, then it's going to be a rough road and it's not going to be fun. And I hit that energy where I was just doing everything, working nonstop all the time, and I was exhausted. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. Started reading a lot of business books and hired some coaches and really realized it's just like any other endeavor in life. You need help, and there are faster and more efficient ways to do things. And I want to pass as much of that knowledge on as I can, and hopefully save people years and many tens of thousands of dollars and point them in a direction that's going to fulfill them and their students.
Beautiful, brother.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations and thanks for coming back to chat about all kinds of wild, whimsical topics that I had no idea to dive into today. It's always
uh,
a treatment.
it was an absolute pleasure, Jeremy. It was great to see you again, buddy. And thanks everybody for hanging with us.
Mm.